Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first of many Boyum and CSS sales training webinars. I'd like to introduce, as we can see here, we have Tom from CSS. They're one of our primary implementation partners, and in conjunction with them, we've put together a sales training webinar to go specifically designed for sales reps to get a better understanding of how we apply the application, and most importantly, how do I identify customers? So with further said, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to do a quick introduction for himself. Now that Joe's popped up beforehand, Joe is one of our colleagues that works here with Boyum, and we also have Rob from CSS jumping on right now. And I'll kind of let Tom and Rob do a quick intro on themselves as they go through the sales training webinar with us. And at the end, Joe and I will be going over some pricing with you to make sure everybody has clear understanding. We're going to ask that we hold off on questions until the end. If you do have any questions, please type them into the comment section, and we'll make sure that all of them get addressed at that point. I appreciate everyone's time. And Tom, you want to jump right in?
Sounds great. Hey, sorry about the late start, guys, but we're excited to have you here and to be able to talk a little bit about Perfion and what it can mean for your business. On the call from our side is myself. I saw Rob briefly, but it looks like he jumped back out again. But Rob and I are partners in the business. We have been working in this field primarily helping customers with all things related to commerce, B2B customers. And Perfion is a very key component of that, as is product information management in general. And we'll be talking quite a bit about that as we get deeper into this. This Santa look that you see in front of you is not how I always am. Typically, I have a nice trim beard like James, but I do play Santa Claus at Christmas, and we've got a couple of conventions coming up. So until then, I have to keep my look, so to speak. Let's jump into the slides and kind of get started here. So just a little bit of agenda as we get started. We're going to talk a little bit about what the market looks like for Perfion. We're going to talk about primarily how do you identify and find the customers that are most likely to be interested in Perfion, and then what do we do once we find those customers in order to get them into a sales and into what I believe can be a very quick close because of the relationships that you guys have already developed, right? So let's go ahead and go into the next slide. There we go. Let's talk first just a little bit, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to talk a little bit about the market in general before we dig into some specifics with Perfion. So Perfion fits squarely into the master data management market at the high end of the market, right, as sort of the macro market, which, and these numbers are a little bit dated. These are a couple of years old now, but $37.9 billion market, 22% growth rate in it. The product information management market is a subset of that. That's what Perfion squarely fits into, and that's a $15.7 billion market with a 25% growth rate. And then, of course, the customer experience market as a whole, which is really also something that PIM fits into, is a $16 billion market. So that's simply to say you've got a big enough market here to exploit and explore. And what's Perfion's current scale in that market? 400 customers. So there is plenty of opportunity out there for us to take advantage of. We just want a percentage of that growth that we see there. Okay, next slide. So let's talk a little bit about why Perfion. Why do customers need it, and where does it fit in? And what you're looking at right here is what a typical e-commerce deployment for a distribution or a manufacturing customer looks like, and really for any customer, but those tend to be the ones that we focus on. because we're very heavily involved in the B2B commerce space. And what happens in that typical e-commerce environment is that there's a whole lot of data that's needed for the website that's stored in different places. It's stored in spreadsheets, it's stored in their ERP systems, it's stored in their shipping systems, in their CRM systems, it's stored in warehouse management systems, and all of that data is critical in order for them to be able to run their websites properly, or their website, or to share information out to the rest of the world, or potentially even to do things like print catalogs or print data sheets. Making that a very time-intensive process, but also making most of your major distributors and major manufacturers that have this problem out of sync on their websites, meaning that what you see isn't really all of the data around the product. It's really probably not accurate in terms of what's available currently on that product. It's very difficult to see what the replacements might be for a particular product. So it creates a tremendous amount of havoc, both in terms of how much work do I have to do to maintain this, and then even after all that work, what does my customer actually get of value when they come to my website and try to order from me? So what happens with PIM? Let's go to the next slide. What PIM does, product information management, which is what Perfion is, in fact, is a product information management platform, is it allows you to organize all of that data. And it allows you to do it in a single source of truth that becomes the de facto way that you communicate all of your marketing information out to the market, whether you're doing that online in the case of your own website or in the case of third-party websites that you sell through, or whether you're doing that in a print catalog, or whether you're pushing information out to your own internal sales team in order for them to become more effective via, for instance, a CRM system. So what does it do? It allows you to take the data that you currently have on your product information, spread out in all of these various places, and consolidate it into a single usable source of truth that not only has the data, the product information, but gives you additional fields where you can go in and create better descriptions, create better tagging. It also gives you the ability to build a digital asset management system where you can, within that same PIM, apply the digital assets that you may have, whether those are pictures, whether those are videos, whether those are sort of spec sheets, if it were, instructions on how to use a particular product. All of those things can be maintained within that single source of truth and can be tightly linked to the products that it's associated with. This reduces the time and effort that is required for a customer to A, maintain the data, and then B, get it out to as many different vehicles in terms of customer consumption as possible. All right, next slide. So the big question from a sales point of view, and let's get into that, is, how do we identify customers? Who cares about this? Who's interested in this? Primarily, it's going to be manufacturing and distribution customers. We found that if they're somewhere between 20 million and 2 billion in revenue, that's sort of a sweet spot. They're not so big that they have massive buying processes, but they're also not so small that they don't need something like this yet. We find that it's fastest to deal with privately held companies. Doesn't mean we don't do business with public companies, doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue those. But again, the object here is, how do you get to the ideal customer? How do you get to them quickly and get some early wins for your companies? And that's one of the angles that we found has been very, very profitable, is to target those privately held institutions. Another thing that you're looking for is customers that have a high volume of products, or even a high volume of product turnover, right? So what you're looking at is customers that, and it may not be products, it could actually also be attributes around those products. So when you're looking at customers, if they have a lot of attributes, color, size, material associated with their products, then that's an ideal customer for PIM. If they simply have a sheer volume of products, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 products, or if they have a high turnover where one product gets phased out and a new product gets brought in fairly frequently, all of those are great for PIM. The other thing that really makes PIM work well for customers is when you can go out and you can look at things like complex needs. By that, I mean to say they need to not only run their own website with the product information, they need to pump that product information out to 3 or 4 third-party websites. And they have print needs, so they print out catalogs or tear sheets or other kinds of advertising. If the more that they're using their product information in both marketing and in sales, the more likely they are to need a PIM in their organization. So next slide. So what does Perfion actually enable? Well, it enables the entire digital experience, right? And when we talk about the digital experience, what we're really talking about is all of the things that a customer needs to do or a company needs to do to get their customers, their partners, to actually buy from them, their trading partners. So what PIM does is it drives that. And Perfion drives that in a number of ways. The most important way is in consolidating information in such a way that now I can not only share more information about my product, tag my product better, make my product easier to find, but it also allows me to do things, for instance, like very quickly identify if you can't buy this right now, what's a good replacement for it? Or if you do buy this right now, what else should you be buying alongside of this? PIM or Perfion allows you to manage that from a single screen in a very integrated way with SAP B1 and a number of other ERP solutions. The advantages versus other PIM solutions of that are very, very simple. The first one is it's very easy to implement Perfion. It takes about 10% of the time that it takes for most other product information management systems out there to implement Perfion versus some of the other guys. The other thing that you get with Perfion is a very predictable license cost, which isn't always the case with Perfion's competitors in the PIM space or in the broader e-commerce space, where oftentimes vendors are trying to push the idea of giving you pricing based on the volume of business that you do rather than based on the software and the value that the software brings. And then finally, it's very, very flexible in terms of its capabilities. So you're able to modify, change, and use the software in very specific ways that you may want to very easily, as opposed to other PIM products and solutions out there where you actually have to go in and do a whole lot of work in order to get it to work in your environment. Next slide. So customers, what they really care about is what does that translate into for us, right? And what it translates for your customer is increased revenue. On average, our PIM customers, our Perfion customers have seen an increase of 17% in revenue. And that goes from as low as 10% to as high as 30%. There's also a significant amount of reduced cost. One of the things that it really does is eliminate an unimaginable number of hours. And these numbers are going to sound crazy to you, but we have customers where they've literally decreased their costs of running their websites by 95%. And I'm talking about their internal human costs associated with managing the data there, right? And what that also then translates into is, because what those guys want to do in marketing is not manipulate data. What they want to do is they want to write really nice copy associated with their products. They want to come up with beautiful pictures and videos. They want to think about, how do I get this in front of the right people at the right time? How do I manage my data information, or my information about product data, out on social media? They want to do the fun things in marketing. Oftentimes, what they get to end up doing is figuring out how to take a product name out of an ERP system that makes no sense at all in the real world and translate it into something marketing related, and then manage that across 50 different spreadsheets that all feed 50 different things. That's not what they want to do. So this improvement of employee morale and what it actually means in terms of your ability as a customer, meaning your customers, to hire better people that are going to want to work there because they have the tools that they need, is immeasurable. And then, of course, Perfion enables a lot of add-ons. It enables much better search. So all of a sudden, your search abandonment goes way down. When your search abandonment goes down, guess what happens? People actually click to buy. And when people click to buy, that's how you get those revenue increases that we were talking about. On the print side, you have the ability to suddenly have beautiful new catalogs coming out literally in maybe a few days worth of work, as opposed to many companies today, it takes months of work to put out a new catalog. And then finally, you can enable all kinds of other things like EDI and things I already spoke about, replacement products and things of that nature. Next slide. All right, so today, where does Perfion sit? Well, we already talked about there's about 400 implementations. I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 published case studies on it. There's a good delivery ecosystem between Boyum itself and then, of course, the services that we provide to both Boyum and to its partner ecosystem. We can go in and very quickly get these implementations up and running. There is, of course, the recurring subscription revenue that comes from this, which is fantastic. And there's, as we said before, a flexible implementation model. And by flexible, I mean flexible to you as the existing Boyum partners in the SAP space. And so we're willing to work with you in whatever way that you need us to, whether that's doing a demo, doing some pre-sales work on the front end, which of course we provide free of charge to the Boyum network, or whether that then becomes and turns into an actual sale that requires some work in terms of implementation services. We can do those services either under your moniker, under our own moniker, and we can work out the billing arrangements on that in the way that that is required for you guys. So when we talk about flexibility, our flexibility is limitless, right? So it's going to be up to you on each deal how you want to handle that with us. Next slide. So what do we provide? We have teams around the world. So we have customers, and this is not always the case, obviously, right? But we have customers and we have examples where we have had a customer that has said, we need to have this entire website with a PIM backend and with a fully mobile front end, as well as a desktop front end up and running in 30 days. And this was actually AT&T that had that requirement. It was a requirement that they had passed to large organizations, IBM Global Services being one of them, and basically had been told by all of them, this is an impossible thing. It cannot be accomplished. we actually did accomplish it. We did it with the around the sun teams that we have. We're able to pass things off from team to team. We're able to do QA as we go, rather than we serve it all until the very end. And so we're able to deliver on that situation. Obviously, that's an expensive situation for the customer, and we did some very unique things in that world where we actually had two teams developing simultaneously the same stuff to make sure that if we had any hiccups, we had the ability to deliver regardless. Our management is all US based. Our folks are here that will be supporting all of the pre-sales effort and that will be running all of the teams. And we are it says here, Perfion US preferred partner, but I think at this point we're the US only partner that has the ability to actually deliver solutions in the Perfion space and has Perfion trained experts on staff. Next slide. Okay, this is a quote from one of our customers, and well, it speaks for itself. And I think if I were you and I'm on your team and you're looking at bringing someone else into your customers, what you want to know is that team that's going to come and do the services work actually does a really good job and is appreciated by its customers. This is just one quote. We have dozens more. And obviously, as we engage together, we're happy to share more information and in much more detail about how we're not going to get egg on your face with any of your customers. As a matter of fact, we're going to make your customers love you even more than they already do. This is just a short list of some of the customers that we have that have deployed solutions that we provide, which include Perfion. Many of these customers have Perfion, but they are not all Perfion customers on this list. Next slide. Actually, can you just quickly pop up the video before we go into the next slide here, Eunice, where from the Perfion event we did in Austin last year? And don't start it yet. Put it on pause for a second.
And they're growing because of M&A.
Yeah, perfect. So I just want to I just want to frame this video before we actually fire it up, right? In this video, what you're going to see is my partner Rob talking at the Perfion event that we did in Austin last year. And what we're talking about are some of the unusual, or what I would say, not unusual, but some of the lesser known uses for PIM. One of those lesser known uses for PIM that could be something that would be important to some of your customers is if you have a customer that happens to have a high volume of purchasing, that is, they're in acquisition mode, they're buying other companies, then PIM is a significant tool in helping a customer of yours that's in that mode get those companies selling very, very fast through their company's normal sales channels, meaning making their product information available literally within a few weeks so that product information can be pushed out through all of the channels that the acquiring company already has in place. And that's what Rob's going to be talking about here. So let's listen to Rob because it's a lot of fun.
How long does it take, my friend, to do an ERP rollout? On average.
Let's say 5 months.
Liar. Okay? I will always tell you the truth, unlike that guy. All right. You're speaking with customers here, my friend. Okay. There's a reason ERP is long and difficult. And it's absolutely, it's valuable. You have to have it, right? It is the transactional engine. But if you roll an ERP in a year, you're dancing a happy dance, okay? We can use PIM, right, in order to enable M&A so that you're bringing on products and selling them in under 30 days. You can buy a company, you can load the PIM, and I'll have you selling on your same website in under 30 days. And if I don't.
Perfect. All right, let's bring the deck back. So as you can see in that video, there was quite a bit of laughter from the customers in the room that were being told that they could utilize an ERP to quickly do that same thing. You simply can't. It's not possible. You guys know that because you're in the ERP business. But what you can do, and what you can do very, very quickly with PIM, is you can do a whole lot of mergers, a whole lot of acquisitions. And if you don't do that, it doesn't really matter. You can still use it internally to very quickly ramp up either new custom websites or new third-party selling arenas where you may want your data, your product data to be available through those sites in order to be able to sell. And there's a lot of those in the distribution and manufacturing area that are very customized to their particular industry, right? Industry-specific sites. All right, so everybody's always, okay, so how do I make money doing this? What do I need to do? How do I make this work in my business or for my customers if I'm the sales rep? And what's the best way to go about that? So you'll see sort of a reverse funnel there, and we're going to talk about that. Well, actually, it's actually not a reverse funnel. It's a real funnel. So at the very top, we have segment your customers. We gave you the segmentation at the beginning of this, and I believe these slides are all going to be loaded here, so you guys can pull them down and hold on to them after the meeting. But essentially, you want to begin by segmenting those, and I would target those customers that kind of fit those top 3 or 4 tiers of that segmentation that we showed you. So I'd make number 1, have them be distribution and manufacturing. Who do you have in that space? Number 2, are they between 20 million and 2 billion? And then number 3, are they privately held? And then 4th would be, how many products and how much complexity within those products in terms of attributes are there? If you identify your top customers on those lines, you'll be pretty much ready to go. And then we do a targeted approach on this, and we'll help you with that. You segment those customers, bring them to us, and we'll actually go look at their website, and we'll actually go take a look at a couple of other things, and we'll put together a little how shall we say, a little targeted statement that says, here are some things that you currently have going on. Some of the things that we find when we do that is that the product information isn't complete. Some of the things we find is that if I enter in a certain product name, I can't find it. Some of the things, there's all sorts of things that we find in those quick discoveries, but that's essentially what we'll do for and with you when you bring us a segmented customer. Out of that, we identify a specific need, right? We go in and we go, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, it's going to make life better for your marketing people. Or if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get additional revenue from it. And we use that specific need to actually customize a quick demo and show a demo based on their needs. Again, we'll do all of that for you. And then finally, what we always like to do is we always like to come in at the tail end of that demo with an ROI. And we have an actual ROI calculator for that the folks at Perfion designed even before Boyum bought it. And that ROI calculator is fantastic in terms of it just requires 4 or 5 inputs from the customer that you have, and you run those numbers into it, and it will spit back very specific numbers in terms of what that customer can expect based on the information they provided for an ROI on this project. And those ROIs, this is, again, I know it's hard to believe, but those ROIs typically come in way less than 12 months. So oftentimes they can make their money back within the first quarter, half year on a Perfion project. And then, of course, the final step there is to close it. So the support we give is that weakness review that I talked about. We'll help you with the discovery. We'll do the configuration. We'll do the demos. And then on the tail end of actually having sold the project, we'll do the implementation and the support, and we'll share that revenue with you. And by the way, we're never interested in any piece of the licensing revenue. That is 100% between Boyum and you guys, their existing partners. Next slide. I'm going to kind of turn this thing over to Joe a little bit here and let him talk through the licensing model and how this actually gets licensed.
Thanks, Tom. I trust everybody can hear and see me. Just a quick introduction, because I know at the onset of this webinar we had a little technical difficulty, but I'm a channel manager for Boyum, and my sole focus is on the Perfion PIM application. Prior to me joining Boyum in the middle of last year, I had spent 6 years with Perfion, and I was their first North American employee back in 2013, and had a kind of a nice long run of working with the Perfion folks and the application and introducing it to the North American market. And in that time, there was many wars, right? A lot of it was about educating the market on what the heck PIM is. Nobody really knew what it was, didn't know that 3-letter acronym too well, like other acronyms you hear. And what I'm really happy to say is that we've done that education piece. We're sort of beyond that now, and we're into this realm where we're talking about a very mature application that's a need to have inside a business. If you're a business with lots of products, whether you make or distribute them, you need something to manage that information, to accelerate this data to market. And I'll kind of add to what Tom said. He did a great job of talking about the benefits of PIM. One of the things you want to add and keep your ears perked to when you're speaking to customers is this notion of time to market, right? Or some folks might express it as an opportunity cost. So now there's so many pressures on organizations and the data about their products to fulfill that information quickly to market, or you lose the sale. They don't turn products. So PIM fits squarely in the heart of that conversation. So hopefully a good takeaway for you guys as you start to think about introducing Perfion to your customers. But I know one of the big things that will come up is the cost, right? And what you see here is hopefully a very simple sort of guideline for you to use when you're interfacing with a customer. We don't want this to be complex and too hairy. You should be able to, with confidence, tell a customer what they should expect to invest in or budget, for an investment. I would say the primary things you're going to want to understand quickly when you're talking to your customers is how many people inside their business touch the product data, how many are manipulating product data inside their 4 walls, right? And in a small business, and I think there's a lot of SMB folks in the SAP B1 space, there's probably not a lot of people touching the product data. It could be one person, it could be 2 or 3, and in that case, they can get a really affordable package that has all of the core capabilities that Perfion offers. And we didn't get into the capability stuff. We'll encourage you to see a demo if you haven't already, and we can get you that understanding. But importing the data, modeling it, getting all your images in, and being able to publish that out to a channel or multiple channels is all baked in the core package. So the things you really want to, again, pay attention to is how many people will be in the system. And I think as software people, you probably already understand, how that conversation goes, being so embedded in the ERP market. So in my gut of guts, I think you're going to be talking to businesses that are more in that entry/business level investment. is my gut, and that's great. It's a great place to be. There are finer points to the licensing that we can get into, but I think those would be secondary conversations that you would have with your customer once you really get the interest and you understand that they have a budget that they can stand on. But the people inside the business that we're talking to are that feel the pain and want the solution are your product managers. It could be a marketing person or a marketing manager, or an IT manager. It's typically those three are the your stakeholders in the conversation. But in every case, this will land on the C-suite's desk, right? So the CEO, the CIO, they'll have to sign off and understand that this is an investment they'll be making because it is a technology that is transformative. It's strategic to a business, and it helps them with process change. So those are some other things you want to anticipate as you're in your sales cycle. So just an easy guide for you to share with a customer, start the conversation, and then if you're starting to get the what ifs and how abouts, then we'll support you in every way and help you.
Yeah,
so that was a bit on the licensing. I hope that's helpful to everybody, and certainly we can take questions.
No,
Joe, I have a quick question. Sorry, Tom. While you're on this slide, can you just give a quick understanding difference between the channels where it's representing 2, 5, and unlimited, and then the difference kind of a little bit in the SAP Business One add-in?
Yeah. So when Tom talked about channels in an earlier slide, right? You saw an e-commerce website. You saw eBay, Amazon. Maybe you have a customer that needs to syndicate data to the Home Depot, right? Those are, we consider those channels. And so we sort of cap them, right? And then that may force you into another license pack. So that when you hear the word channel or you're using the word channel, think of just that, a website, an e-commerce application, something that you might utilize our API to send data to and connect with.
So would the ERP be a channel?
It's the ERP is not technically a channel. What we do is we have an add-in for the SAP B1 ERP system. So it's its own module, if you will, and I've baked that into the licensing cost here. So in these cases here, your customer could share data, could pull data from SAP into the Perfion application, essentially. And once they do that, then they can enrich the data, fill out attribute information, add images, assign it to their e-commerce web shop, etc.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom, go ahead. I know you were talking a little bit.
No problem. I think that those are important things to clarify. So yeah, this gives you a good insight into, roughly where things end up. Obviously, when you're looking at these on the entry level side, your implementation costs are much lower. Most customers that are on that side are going to have limited customizations and limited additional sort of things that they want to do. And as they progress up that ladder, business enterprise, they may want to do more complex things, and then implementation becomes a little more complex. So a good rule of thumb would be to look at the annual licensing, and from an implementation cost point of view, it's going to be somewhere between half and 150% of licensing to do the implementation work. And very rarely is it going to be more than what the actual license is, though, for any one of these tiers. So that's pricing on this. Let's go to the next slide. So how do we get started, right? The easiest way, the fastest way to make an immediate impact is start with your current customers. I know you're out there. You're probably not spending a lot of time with customers you've already won. because you're sales guys. You've already won them, and and you've sold them the things that you could sell them. Well, now you have something new to sell to an existing customer. And one of the things that we know is that it's much, much easier to sell to someone that's bought from us in the past than to sell into a net new account. So I'd say start with the current customer set and then identify that target space that we painted earlier. Once you've done that, set appointments to introduce PIM, and we're your experts. When I say with your experts, just set an appointment. We can show up as part of your company. We can show up as ourselves. So it just depends on how you want to make that introduction of us into the sales cycle. But what we will do is we'll approach it very consultatively. Like I said, once we know who we're getting ready to talk to, we'll run one of our internal analysis. We'll give you tools, and we'll come to the table with tools prepared to talk about very specific things that we see holes in their product content on their commerce sites or other places where they may be doing sales, like Home Depot, for instance, or eBay, or some of those other channels. And here's the good news. The good news is kind of cold, without any of this, starting with your own customers. We've been and out of every 3 to 5 meetings, we've been roughly getting one close. We believe that in this case, with 3 meetings, we should be able to get one close, because these are guys that know you. And as long as we've identified well some of the holes that they may have in their product data and in their capability to deliver good, solid information out to the web or to other places, we should be able to win these deals very, very easily. Not insignificantly, because of that ROI calculator that we'll put in the final phase of that. As Joe said, and I love the point he made, is look, it's going to be easy to get the marketing guys to want this because it simplifies their lives. Ultimately, though, there's going to be somebody in the C-suite that has to sign off. And you guys know this probably better than anybody. Those guys may or may not care whether or not their marketing people are happy with the tools that they have. But what they do care about is money. And if we can demonstrate in the closing that there's going to be a good, solid ROI, we'll close that business. And we can demonstrate that. So that's it. That's what we'd like to get started on. And we're here. We're available. We'll take calls from you guys anytime. We will, work as hard as you want us to help you get these things in and closed. Do we have some questions that folks would like to pop over?
I know everybody's probably muted if I'm not mistaken, so feel free to put any questions you have in the chat and we'll make sure we address them. Just kind of want to add to Tom's conversation here about next steps and things of that sort. We'd like to also kind of expand on this training going forth. It is kind of our introduction into giving you guys as many tools for you to have available. We'll be putting out webinars like this probably on a monthly basis, going over it. I'll also be reaching out to everybody individually after this to figure out next steps, what conversations you want to have, a little clarity if we don't get a chance to address everything. But it looks like, Tom, we have a couple questions coming through here.
Okay.
Are you able to see them in the comments section?
Let me see. Hang on. I'm not. There we go. Okay. Holy cow. There are things there.
I see a good question here that's pretty relevant, Tom. Can you describe the differences between PIM versus ERP? When people, I have just sort of a stock answer for that. Sometimes folks will try and do product information management in PIM, and it becomes, you got to be careful you don't back yourself or code yourself into a corner there. Having standard solutions, I think, matters. SAP is a standard solution. Perfion's a standard solution. You can count on, the development and the upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of what's unique about the two, I always think of ERP as back office stuff. It's not, you don't necessarily want to expose things that are in your ERP out to the market, out to your customers. PIM is all about exposing your stuff, your data out to the market. So that's I think one delineation you want to make when you're talking to customers. Some customers may push back and say, well, why can't I do this? I have product data in my ERP. Well, do you trust that data? Is it clean? Is it enriched? Does it really tell an elegant story about your product information and help you compete against the market or your competitors when it comes to product data and helping people select and buy? So those are the things I would, talk about around the differences of the two systems.
Yeah, and just adding to that, right? When you talk to any marketing manager at any of these companies, I can guarantee you that even if they start by pulling data from an ERP, they're pulling that data into a spreadsheet and they're then manipulating it in a spreadsheet in order to make it useful for marketing purposes. ERPs just aren't designed to store enough information about products in order to make that useful when being marketed out to the rest of the world. And that's okay, because that's not what they're meant for. ERP is primarily a financial tool, and PIM is primarily a marketing tool. And that would be my way of delineating the two, right? What else do we have?
I don't see anything else coming up right now.
We're kind of butting up to the end of the meeting anyway.
So what I'll do for everybody is I will share this out, some additional checklist of questions that you can ask, things of that sort, and we'll be able to address any questions that you might have after that point as well. And I, again, want to thank everybody for joining today, Tom and Joe as well for taking part in this. And I hope we really found some value out of it.